designed to encourage, empower, and educate real estate professionals by sharing best practices from business leaders that are proven winners. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and this is Calibrate Real Estate. Broadcasting from the Mile High City, you are tuning in to the Calibrate Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and today is a fun episode that we've got lined up for you. I've got Chastin J from Dallas, Texas. Chastin and I have become friends over the last couple of years through a mutual acquaintance of ours, Rogers Healy. Rogers was a 30 under 30 with Realtor Magazine, as was I. And so Chastin, thanks so much for joining us today. A little bit about Chastin. He's the best real estate agents in the D magazine. That's for Dallas. That's a huge magazine, huge award, and that was a 2017 award. He's also the social media chair for his YPN chapter, which is the Metro Texas Realtor Association. He's got a YouTube channel that you definitely want to check out. He's an author, both an Inman contributor, and for real estate folks, you'll know what Inman is. And then he also has written his own book called More Than Four Walls. So very excited to have Chastin J on the line today. Chastin, welcome to our podcast.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you. I appreciate this.
Good to see you again, buddy. Virtually, it's good to see you.
Yeah. It's been a little while.
All right, so let's dive into this. I just shared some of your accolades. Tell us about your story. I love to start with the beginning. How did you find the real estate profession? How did you get into this crazy business? You've got to be a little nuts to be a realtor and work on 100% commission. So how'd you find this, and how'd you start working for Rogers Healy and Associates?
Well, let me start off by saying I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I decided to jump in real estate. I actually moved to Texas from Georgia. And so I wanted a change of career, and something in me wanted to sell real estate. I really loved marketing and I liked seeing it. And so I was like, let me get my real estate license. So I got here, got my real estate license, and kind of sat there looking for what to do next. And so years down the line of me having my license and everything, I was actually introduced to Rogers through a mutual friend of ours who was an agent here at the time. And, you know, I didn't actually know that I was coming in for an interview when I met Rogers, and I was thinking it was just, you know, maybe he was presenting me an offer on one of my properties or something. And I sat here, kind of talked for a while and got to know him, and, you know, found out more about the company. And there was just a different type of culture here. And so, yeah, I moved my license over and I've been here ever since. And so he's a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate everything that he does. And it's really helped out my real estate career.
Yeah, Rogers is the man. He's been a mentor to me. He's a contributor to the book that I'm working on. And Rogers is got a good wit about him. He says, you know, we created a company that the whole goal was to really do things differently than the rest of the real estate companies in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And he said he's honored that his name has become a brand. But he said the reality was, especially at the beginning, he's like, we were just a band of misfits. You know, like we're in the Christmas season, and I think about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Island of Misfit Toys, which is also featured in the movie Elf. And so, you know, someone like yourself, I think, working with Rogers and working at a boutique, which has now become a mega boutique, as you have over 200 agents at that company. What attracted you to work for a boutique besides working maybe at another larger firm? And I know you worked somewhere else before you worked there. Obviously the culture, you said, but what are some other things that just struck you as this is the place for me to be?
Well, a big thing was the actual people who worked here. And so when I looked at the agent roster and the website, and I was like, wow, these people look like they really know what they're doing. And, you know, everybody looks good. Everybody was smiling. Me walking through the office, everybody seemed happy. And so just like that alone was just a different feeling. And then as I got kind of submerged in the company, I really noticed that I appreciated the way that Rogers trains agents. He's still practicing real estate, so he's out here in the real world experiencing the same things that we're experiencing, and he has a long history of it. And so he was able to provide me with that knowledge that other companies not necessarily have been able to, simply because their broker may be very disconnected, or you're being trained and led by a team leader who probably hasn't practiced real estate in a long time. And that was something that was a lot different than the other place that I had been at, simply because he was still practicing real estate. So he was able to really put me on to, price per square foot here, price per square foot there, and, just fully submerged in the market. And so I really appreciated that. Plus, it's a very youthful environment. He's a youthful guy. So a lot of things that he goes through and that we were, working on, and like I experienced the same things. And so it's really fun.
I want to park on that statement for a minute that you said youthful, because Rogers has told me, as well as our 30 Under 30 alumni network, to describe yourself when you're young as youthful, because people appreciate being youthful when you're young. Sometimes you can get stereotyped as maybe not having as much experience, but even older people can be youthful. So I love that you said that. And I've noticed that through speaking with Rogers and interacting with his team, is that everybody's professional, but at the same time, they all enjoy working with each other. And that, I think, is really the testament of running a great real estate company, is that you spend a lot of time together, you probably spend, in many cases, more time than you would with your loved ones, because you're at work the majority of the day. And so you might as well enjoy who you're working with, right? You might as well have people around you that both you enjoy working with, but also that can stretch you. And that's what I hear in you speaking about Rogers and the training program that he offers. And I remember him saying that he trains either once or twice a week with his agents. He is a salesperson, so I think there's a high level of respect that comes from learning from someone who's still out there in the trenches, still getting listing appointments. And not only that, Rogers has created this relocation network and this referral network that's nationwide, and has sold houses for celebrities and football players and basketball players. At one point, Britney Spears is pictured with the Rogers Healy and Associates T-shirt saying "Rogers Healy is my realtor" on it. So I mean, he's really become a national celebrity, and also still works his tail off in Dallas Fort Worth. So I think that's a big testament to who he is.
Truly, yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about you specifically and how you generate real estate leads. I've noticed this sitting from afar in Denver, that I think that you're an expert in social media. And I think that that's something that a lot of people profess to be an expert in, but I really have appreciated the way that you set up both your website as well as your YouTube channel. You've talked about doing different social media experiments, if you will, to always try to be on the leading edge of what's going on. So what's working for you? How do you approach your social media strategy is what I should say. How do you approach your social media strategy? And what are some tips for our audience that they may be able to apply into their marketplace?
Yeah, so the biggest thing with social media when it comes to my strategy and approaching it is not being scared. I talk to agents all the time, all over the country, and the biggest thing is they're mostly scared. I don't want to annoy people. I don't want people to not follow me. I don't want to get on people's nerves. Well, that's gonna happen, and I'm just gonna say, like, that's gonna happen, and there's nothing you can really do about it. And it happens to everybody when you put yourself out there on such a large scale and an open network like that. You're gonna have haters, but you're also gonna have fans. And so when it came to social media, me living here and moving to an area that I didn't know anybody and that I didn't barely even know the streets, I was really forced to submerge myself into social media marketing, because I was like, this is going to be one of the only ways that I can probably generate business and build a name for myself. And so how I really do that, I look and see what's trending. Like, what is the network that everybody's getting on? What is everybody hopping to? Like, I'm that guy hopping from place to place to place, because that's where the audiences are going. And granted, each social network has their own audience, but it's important for us to be everywhere, because you never know where you're going to find your next client. So when I started, it was mostly Facebook and Twitter, and it was kind of Twitter for me more than Facebook. And then I kind of transitioned over to Facebook, and I was doing that self-promotion that realtors were kind of unheard of doing at the time. nowadays you see it everywhere. And then after Facebook came, YouTube, and now we have Snapchat and Instagram, and, we had Periscope for a while. So just all these networks, it can be overwhelming, but they all kind of work the same. And so that brings me to the next point is you have to have content that you're going to place on these social media networks. Content is super important, or you are going to look like that lame person who's probably paying a service to post on social media because you're posting the same thing that someone else is posting. And so it's very important to have content, and your content can be anything. Like, it can literally be anything, and you can recycle your content. You don't necessarily have to have the like a different piece of artwork on your Instagram from your Facebook, on your Twitter and YouTube. You can recycle it, you can repurpose it, you can use the same blog article, give it a different title, change up a few things, and then you have a totally new blog article. And so really spreading yourself out there and putting out good and content for people to see, that's what's going to really grow your social media following.
Love it. So let's talk about some of the channels specifically. And this certainly can date our podcast, but I think as we try to dig into social media, a lot of the things that you're going to be doing are going to be applicable across several channels, whatever ends up being the hot new system. And I think it's really important to talk about what's working for you within each different channel. So you talked about Facebook, you talked about Twitter, talk about Instagram. If you could, and just what things you share on Instagram and what you think is something that works out really well for you on the platform Instagram.
Okay, so Instagram is actually the network that I have really been on a lot lately because it has taken off ever since Facebook acquired it. And the things that are working on Instagram right now are Instagram stories. Like, everyone is posting stories. And what I've been able to do with my stories, instead of it just being a selfie of me or, me just recording a home, I'm able to actually place content in my stories. So place blog post snippets in my stories. I'm able to feature clients. I'm able to create advertisements for my real estate business, for my services, and actually share my life and the food I'm eating and my dog. But stories kind of give people that inside reality look into your life, because most times a story is recorded. There's some type of animation, there's some type of movement, there's sound, so it captures and keeps their attention. And so I am on my Instagram story all day. So all day, whatever I'm doing, I'm giving my followers that inside look into my life. Something with real estate, and I tell people this all the time, it's like a lot of agents are headshot agents. All people know you by is your headshot. They only know you by this one picture that is on everything. And we really have to step away from that and let people into your life. Like, that's why these real estate shows are so popular, because it's showing the stuff that happens behind the scenes. And I feel like as normal agents, when we break into that, that's when our followings grow, because you start to build a different kind of connection with people, because they start to feel more relatable to you, or they like what you're doing and they start commenting and writing you and asking you questions, and it's a whole different experience. But you have to let them in, and Instagram is a great network for that right now.
Well, which, by the way, that headshot mentality, as a realtor, we all know the realtor that you meet where you're like, man, I've seen that person's face on social media, but also on bus stops and billboards, and you meet him and that photo is 15 years old, and you're like, holy cow, that does not look at all like you. And so I think the big key with social media is being authentic. Authentic to who you really are. And you shared, hey, you're going to share some posts about your dog and some of the food that you're eating. And what does that have to do with real estate? Really, it has nothing to do with real estate, but it has to do with you as the realtor. And what ends up happening is people hire us because they know, like, and trust us. Right. And that's as old as the real estate industry, that saying, but that's the reality, is people hire you because they know, like, and trust you. And they can't know, like, and trust you from afar unless you share some things that you really enjoy. The thing I also heard you say at the very beginning of our discussion on social media was that a lot of people are scared or fearful of posting content. And what I hear in that, and I actually go through that myself, and I want to be vulnerable for a minute and discuss that. But what I hear in that is that people are playing to their critics, not to their fans. And what happens when you play to your critics is there's always going to be someone out there, someone that's a naysayer, and especially in social media where there is no actual face-to-face communication. People get what I like to call keyboard muscles, right? And keyboard muscles mean people are going to type out something that they would never, ever say to you, to your face or over the phone. And so if you play to the critics, you're always going to live a little bit smaller of a life than you should. Play to your fans. There's the people out there that appreciate you and want you to be your true, authentic self. So I like that you encourage people to not be fearful and just put it out there, because there's always going to be someone that doesn't like what you're doing.
Right. All right.
And that doesn't mean to wildly just post stuff without getting any feedback and trying to make iterations. I mean, Calibrate, the word is all about making iterations, intentional adjustments in your business, but also in your life to have a better future than what you have currently right now. But I think if you play to that critic, if you play to the person that's not happy with what you're doing, you're always going to be hesitant. And we all know what happens when you're hesitant, right? It's like the squirrel in the road. They move over and try to avoid you, and all of a sudden that blump, they get hit by a speeding car. So let's talk about YouTube now. YouTube on your website, it is impressive. Just the display of all the different YouTube shows that you have and YouTube content. And I'm paraphrasing here, but I've got 5 ways to generate real estate leads, how an agent commission is calculated, good investments for a realtor. I mean, these are all real videos that you have on your page, and they look great. I mean, a lot of them are you in your face, but this is cool stuff. So tell me about your YouTube channel. What's the stuff that gets the most viewership, and what do you enjoy recording on your YouTube channel?
Okay, so for my YouTube channel, I actually enjoy recording the things that nobody talks about when it comes to the real estate industry. You know, people don't really talk about commission. You know, it's an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people. And even from a client standpoint, I've had friends, you know, not use me because of how much money I was going to make on their transaction. And it baffles me. So I got this bright idea one day, let me record a video about how real estate agents actually get paid, because no one likes to take into account the taxes and the marketing expenses and the gas and just the splits with our brokers, you know. Sure. And so that's actually become one of my most popular videos over time. And from that, I just kind of kept going with that. I was like, okay, we're kind of on to something here. And it's grown this following and audience, both of real estate agents and then also clients who just appreciate how authentic I am. I use video a lot in my business. You can see a lot of my public videos, but I also have a lot of private videos that I use within my business, whether they are buyer's consultation videos, next steps videos, you know, during a transaction. Video is very big nowadays. And I mean, video is so convenient for me because I can say a lot, but I don't have to necessarily talk on the phone for an hour, or I don't have to have a 2-hour face-to-face meeting. And it gives them a record of what I said, so people can always refer back to it. You know, YouTube marketing is huge. I recommend that everybody gets on YouTube and at least put out some type of content. And YouTube is another place where you can repurpose a lot of content. Most videos that I have a blog article written about them that I take quotes from and create images out of them, that I also place videos on Facebook, and I'll break up these videos into 10, 15, 20-second increments. And so, you know, it's a great network, and it has a very large audience. And like I get business from YouTube, and I get a good amount of referral business too, just from agents all over the country.
That's awesome. Well, and one of the things that I think is real interesting about YouTube is a phenomenal platform. There's a ton of users on YouTube, but it is a very fragmented space. And some advice that I got about YouTube is that, you know, YouTube's a great place to put content, but you still need a delivery mechanism. You still need to be able to either send that out in a broadcast email through an email company. There's several that do that. You also need to place your YouTube videos within social media, and then you can text them, you can put them on your blog, and they live there. But that rich content, YouTube doesn't really have a good delivery mechanism besides your subscribers. And a lot of times you're not going to grow subscribers unless they see it from somewhere else. And so I think making sure that you repurpose that and put that out onto your different channels is real important. The other thing that I find about YouTube that's really fascinating, and this is actually a true situation. Yesterday, I'm picking up my daughter from her competitive swimming practice, which is at a local high school, and they happen to have a stack of the local high school's newspaper, and the edition of the newspaper happened to be a survey of the high school students and what social media platforms they're on. Now, high school students aren't buying houses, but they're going to be the future home buyers here in the next 5 or 10 years, and there's a bunch of pie charts showing the freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior classes and what type of social media they consume. Surprise, surprise, Snapchat is typically about 50% of the social media that a high school student is doing. But I found it very interesting that there was a pretty close correlation between Instagram and YouTube as the second. They were both between 20 and 25% of the users, and this is one local high school in the state of Colorado, so it's not always going to be the case across the nation. But YouTube is, I think, a way that people are learning things. It's a way that people are finding out information without having to consult with an expert. And I think the reason why this podcast is on iTunes, but is also simulcast on YouTube, is that a lot of people want to have that window in. They want to be a fly on the wall for a conversation, or they want to learn something without having to necessarily make that phone call to that person. And for us agents, it's a great way of having that same conversation we have every single day, but recording it and saying, hey, this is something that everybody always asks me, watch it. And it makes our life more efficient, which I think is great.
Definitely. Definitely. And, you know, video is kind of the new way of things now. You know, people aren't reading like they used to. Everybody's going to watch a video to learn something new. We see them scrolling all day through our Facebook feeds. Facebook promotes them like no other. I mean, we have Snapchat and Instagram stories. Like, all of these are centered around video. And I honestly feel like me introducing video into my business has created even a different client experience. You know, clients appreciate it. They find my videos very informative, but they like my delivery of them. You know, I'm not sending a 3-page long email. I'm saying it in a 2 to 3 minute video. And so it saves them time, and they actually watch the video. You know, when you send someone a video, there's a better chance that they're going to watch it than sitting there reading your 4-page email. And so, and with our smartphones, I mean, it's so easy. Just plop it in front of you and start talking. You know, it's such a great delivery method for a lot of things real estate nowadays.
Well, and that's a great point. For those of you that are listening on iTunes or some other podcast app, this is simulcast on YouTube, and the benefit is you get to see what Chastin looks like, you get to see what I look like, and you get to see our mannerisms. There's so much that's lost when you have this the nonverbal